Thanks, Lauren. Evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. My name is Richard Palmer, and I'm currently working as the Senior School Assistant Principal at Gisborne Secondary. Let me first acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the country on which we work and learn at Gisborne Secondary College. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water, community, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Unfortunately, obviously, we again find ourselves in a lockdown situation, preventing not only the kids being at school for classes, but some important events that we have, including course advising and subject selection for our Year 10 students. It's a very important time of the year for students in terms of this. We have students making decisions on which programs to follow, what subjects they want to study as they enter their final 2 years of secondary school. And while there's a lot of work involved at school, we find this a really exciting and rewarding time of the year. It allows us to interact with students and families on a whole different level as we discuss a range of new concepts for them, things like work placement, study programs, and future pathways. We often see students begin to interact with staff in a whole different manner as they begin to identify what lays not too far ahead for them in terms of their goals, careers, and study prospects that may be coming up soon. Tonight you'll hear from some senior staff members at the school. We'll have Lauren Anglin, who's the senior leader in charge of programs, and John Takulan, our careers coordinator. We hope that the information you hear tonight answers questions that you may have already come up with through some investigation you've done into this process. If you do have questions, what we'll ask you to do is write them in the chat function, not to actually ask them tonight. We've just got too many families that'll be present to actually ask, have the opportunity to ask questions. So if you have a question, if you could write it in the chat. We are recording the presentations, so we'll be able to work our way backwards, and we'll get around to answering the questions that people pop up over the next day or two. You obviously also have for people who have their advising session tomorrow, the opportunity to ask your course advisor for support in terms of that. Again, thanks very much everyone for logging in tonight and supporting your students with their decision-making process for subject selections into 11 and 12. That's all from me for the moment, so I'll hand over to Lauren first. Thank you all.
Thank you, Richard. I'm just going to share my screen with you so we can get started through this presentation. So, hold on. I will do that when I can get it to work correctly. Do this. My sincere apologies. Have I mentioned that I love doing this via Zoom? Sorry, guys. All right, there we go. You should be able to see the presentation now. Can you just give me a thumbs up, Richard, if that's looking proper? Great, thank you so much. All right, so welcome to this evening. I'm sorry that for some of you, that this is partway through the course advising process. Obviously, we had to make that change to accommodate COVID. As Richard said, I'm the senior school leader here at Gisborne Secondary College, and so I work with our students in years 10, 11 and 12. So welcome to this subject selection information evening. Hopefully we'll be able to answer most of your questions here tonight, but please, as Richard said, post some questions in the chat, get in touch with us after this evening if things are still unclear or if you have some follow-up questions that you'd like to clarify. So the senior school team at the moment is our assistant principal of the senior school, Richard Palmer, myself, and then looking at year 11 in 2022, currently our year 11 coordinator is Miranda Brown. So just a little overview of year 11 and 12. There are 2 senior school certificates on offer for students that are going from year 10 into year 11. They are the VCE, or the Victorian Certificate of Education, and VCAL, the Victorian Certificate of Applied Learning. These are two very different programs, but they both give a Year 12 pass and a senior school certificate. VCE is a 2-year certificate, so you must complete the 2 years to attain that certificate, and most students will sit examinations and receive an ATAR at the end of that. VCAL, as the name suggests, is an applied learning. It's a much more vocational certificate, and there are 2 certificates on offer. So the intermediate certificate is completed during a student's Year 11 year, and the senior certificate is completed in a student's Year 12 year, generally. It's really important to understand that VCAL is a hands-on option for students in Year 11 and 12, and it involves work placement, so vocational training, and really is focused on for students that have a clear pathway and they really understand what it is that they want to achieve. I will go into a bit more detail on VCAL later on. Okay, so I really want to focus on the VCE structure for the moment. So the VCE structure is 6 subjects at Year 11 and 5 subjects at Year 12. Each subject, as you can see over on the right of the screen, is broken up into 2 units. So 2 units at Year 11 and 2 units at Year 12. Units in turn are broken down into outcomes, and a student has to successfully demonstrate skills and understanding in all of the outcomes to attain a unit. Over the duration of a student's study of Year 11 and 12 VCE, generally at Gisborne Secondary College, students will complete 22 units. This gives them a really a good breadth of subjects, and also gives them the opportunity to explore different study modes and different types of education. So whether that be sciences, art, the humanities, etc. Right, so this is what a typical Year 11 structure would look like. You'll note that each subject, unlike Year 10, every subject goes for the duration of the year. You will do Unit 1 in Semester 1 and Unit 2 in Semester 2. You'll notice in the blue here that English is has been put there, and that's because that is a mandatory option. Every student studying VCE must complete units in English, literature, or English language. I'll talk a little bit about those options a bit later, but it is a mandatory choice. So this is a typical Year 11 student subject selection for 2022. On this slide, I've got a typical, just so you understand where we're going, a typical Year 12 subject selection. So you can again see that there's the English there, but you'll notice that this person drops a subject when they go into Year 12, and that becomes a study period. This is to help them manage the increased workload, and you'll notice that for students there's an increase as they go into Year 11. It steps up again in Year 12, and so it's really important that they have that study period to enable them to keep up with that increased workload and manage that increased workload. The other thing that's not on these typical Year 12 subject selections is our 4SP program. So all students in Year 10, 11 and 12 complete or participate in our 4SP program. That's where we do things such as careers work, any study skills work, a whole bunch of cross-curricular things that are really important. And by doing them in 4SP, it means we're not taking students out of their other classes. And so it gives us a really good balance for getting those cross-curricular things done and having things like assemblies and those important things without disrupting the teaching and learning program. All right, so subject selection from Year 10 into Year 11. When you're selecting your course, it's really important to play to your strengths. It's really important to actively seek support from your family, your friends, and your teachers, and be mindful of university prerequisites. Now, Mr. Takulam will talk a little bit more about university prerequisites, but these are the subjects that you need or the particular scores that you need to get into a particular university course. So some university courses, for instance, have a minimum score of 25 in English, or they might have that you must have a maths, or you must have a maths and a science. Some university courses, for instance, want you to do an art folio. So as I said, Mr. Cullen will talk about that more, but it's really important that you understand what those prerequisites are now, because you don't want to get to the end of your VCE and not have the prerequisites you need to get into the university course that you want. So it's really important to be mindful of that. Okay, so as I said, I was going to talk a little bit more about the compulsory English requirement. So at year 11 and 12, you must have at least 3 units of English, and 2 of these must be at year 12. So they can come from English or standard English, literature, or English language. It's really important that students understand the nature of these subjects and make informed choices about which is the best English for them. As I said earlier, for the majority or the vast majority of students, the best choice for them will be standard English. It's really important that you understand that literature, as it's a wonderful subject and it's really fantastic for the right student, but it involves really high level writing skills, really deep level analysis, and a love of reading of challenging and really different texts. So it's really worth bearing that in mind when you're considering these English choices. English language, on the other hand, is a really heavily theory-based subject. It's really, really structured, and it's and again, it's one of those more challenging English subjects. So what I would recommend if you're thinking about picking an English that is not the standard English, make sure you go and talk to some of our senior school literature teachers. So Miss McGee, Mr. Waterson, Miss Keeble, or our English language teacher, which is Miss Moore. Would really recommend that you investigate that decision as part of your course selection process. On the other side of this slide, I've got the prerequisites, just a few examples listed. So it might be that you need a maths. So most students will do general maths at year 11, going into further maths at year 12, or methods 1 and 2 going into methods 3 and 4. There is a foundation maths, which is only offered at year 11 and doesn't have a year 12 component. And then we have our sciences. So chemistry, physics, biology, psychology, etc. So some courses will have, you must have a maths and a science. And so there are some examples of those prerequisites you could have. As I said before, that often you will also need a minimum study score. And often the majority of courses will have a minimum study score in English in particular. Again, really make sure that you're talking to Mr. Cullen about those details. All right, so moving on to our VCAL program. So VCAL, as I said, is a separate certificate to the VCE. The subjects, you don't get subject choice in VCAL for the subjects that you do at school. So literacy, numeracy, personal development, work-related skills, and structured workplace learning recognition. In addition to those set subjects, you also need to engage in industry-specific skills. So these come through a VET or a school-based apprenticeship and a work placement. So there is quite a range of VET options. And again, Mr. Cullen will talk about those in a bit more detail. There's some listed there. But making sure you pick the right VET for your pathway is really important, because VET is not something you can change. It's not something you can get halfway through the year and go, oh, I'm not enjoying my building and construction VET, now I'll go and do plumbing. Unfortunately, those are year-long courses. And to get the credit for that, it's really important that you stick with that course for the year. It's also a requirement of your VCAL certificate. So understanding that VET is an integral part of the VCAL program is really essential. The other thing that our VCAL students do is they do 1 day of work placement a week. So work placement is something that students and their families, in conjunction with our careers department, seek out and find, and it needs to be a workplace that is linked to your VET. So you'll notice if you are interested in the VCAL program and you want to go through the application process for entering this program, you'll notice that there are some questions around what vet you're choosing and your ideas around work placement on the application form. We're not expecting you to have a work placement lined up when you apply, but we want to know that you've thought about it and that you have some ideas about how you might find a work placement. So really important when you start looking at that application process. As I said earlier, VCAL is has 2 certificates over the 2 years. The 2022 cohort of VCAL students will be the last cohort to go through the VCAL program. So the department are making some changes after this year to the way vocational education is delivered, and VCAL won't exist in its current form for students who are currently in Year 9. So you Year 10s are lucky last to go through this, but it means that we're going to have a few extra restrictions on how we do things going through your final 2 years. So it's just worth knowing that. Hold on, just before I move on, was there anything else I wanted to say about that? No, just to reiterate, this is really a program for those of you that have a vocational pathway in mind. So the students that know they want to go on and be an electrician, students who know they want to work in the beauty industry, students who know they really want to go and be a childcare early childhood care educator, students who are really clear about what their pathway is and are ready to move through that pathway. So just bear that in mind again when you're going through the VCAL application process. Once those applications are received, the school will then be in touch with you. Our VCAL coordinator, Stephanie Cust, myself or Mr. Palmer will have a conversation with you and your students around whether this is the best fit for you and whether it's the right program for you. And then you'll get a letter of offer to that program. So it's a very different process. Whereas VCAL, VCE, it's really about jumping on EdVal, and selecting those subjects. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention tonight is our progression policy. Now, I know this is a long way away, but it's important to understand early in the piece. So for our students in Year 10, for automatic progression to Year 12, so at the end of Year 11, you must have completed at least 10 of your Year 11 units and all of your English units. Where a student does not meet these requirements, a student parent conference will take place. So this is really important because if a student is not gaining at least 10 units in Year 11, we become really concerned about making sure that they're going to have that successful pathway in Year 12. And so that meeting is not about stopping students from progressing to Year 12, but rather making sure that they've got the supports in place so that they can be successful in their final year of schooling. For VCAL progression to Year 12, all students must have attained their intermediate certificate, and this is more important than ever given the phasing out of the VCAL program. All right. Another thing I just really wanted to mention was around attendance. I know it's something that we as educators talk about often, but it's really important to remember going into a VCE or a VCAL program. In the senior certificates, there is not the flexibility or the ability to pace the delivery of curriculum in the way we might be able to do in the junior year levels. So if a student is missing lots of class, they are missing lots of content, and the content will continue in their absence. And so it's really important to just remember that and to try and make sure that as you're finishing your Year 10 year, you're getting your attendance rates up so that you're really used to attending school for all of your classes, all of your days. And really, here's your opportunity to put yourself in a really good position going into your senior certificate. All right, so they're the things that I wanted to talk about. I will be back at the end of this presentation to go through some of the logistics in terms of finding those application forms and where you need to submit them and whatnot. But for now, I'm going to pass on to my colleague John Takulin, who'll work through some more of our presentation. Thanks, John. John, you're on mute. Ooh, I think we're having a bit of trouble hearing you there, John. What I might do is I might let John have a play with his microphone and settings there, and I might just jump to where the materials are, and we'll come back to him. All right, let me. There. All right, so couple of things that I was going to speak about at the end are about where you need to select a course. So you'll need to get onto EdVal, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with from selecting subjects in the past. For VCE, when you log on to EdVal, you will select your course. Codes will be emailed to parents by the end of the week. EdVal will open on Friday, and it's important that your details are accurate on Zuno. So for those emails, to make sure they're going to the right place, please make sure your details are up to date. You'll then be able to pick your course and your subjects for VCE. Please make sure this happens by the due date, but there is no advantage to getting in early. It's as long as you're in by the due date, that's how we'll work. For VCAL, you'll also need to. Oh,
you can hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, John.
Okay.
All right, I'll jump back to where we were.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Well, so many buttons there, but it did look like I was unmuted. But anyway, look, okay, apologise again. Now, this is the careers team, and there's quite a few of us, and we'll each specialise in a particular area. So we've got myself, Sonia, another careers practitioner, vet coordinator. We also have Karen, who deals with the work experience and also the safe at work modules. We have Kathy, who's new on board, and she's also the vet coordinator and also working with the VCAL students in regards to structured workplace learning. And we also have Callie working as part of Head Start, in case you are interested in students are interested in undergoing a school-based apprenticeship through Head Start. Right, next slide. Okay, I suppose at this point, quite interesting being at year 10 and trying to work out exactly what we're going to do next year. And I suppose a bit of a balancing act. You know, we can go down the VCE pathway or the VCAL, and there's a number of questions you do need to ask about each side of it. But look, I tend to generally advise people, if you're still not sure about what you want to do after you leave school, I strongly recommend go down the VCE pathway, because that way there's a bit of exposure with different VCE subjects. If you're not sure, VCAL is probably not the way to go, because there are various vet subjects you can choose from, but you've got to make sure that you've picked the right one that suits you. Next slide. Okay, now as part of the Careers Centre at Gisborne Secondary, there's a whole bunch of things that we can help students and also family to work through. Now, it could be something to do with the apprenticeship, so we could help with resume writing. If you are interested in trying to get in a scholarship at a uni, we can help with that. But as you can see, there's quite a bit there that we can work with. Next one. Next slide.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Now, I've always said in the past, let's aim high, but I've actually changed this around a bit. Okay, let's aim higher. Look, we know from research that one of the most powerful contributors to student success is, bring higher expectations of themselves. Now, as long as you put yourself in the game, and these are my two idols, regardless of what disadvantages you may think you have, I've actually seen so many students in the past who put themselves in that category and achieved, so many things. So you just got to put yourself in the picture and try, because you never know what happens. Look, everyone else is quite competitive and they just may topple over, and luck just might go your way. Okay, next one. Right, now this is the pathways thing that we at the bottom of it all, you still, regardless if you choose VCE or VCAL, you may still end up going to university if you wish. I know that year 10, there's probably a bit of an early decision to make to say, no, I'm not going to go to university. I'm not interested. But just for the next 2 years, you may come across some, certain work experience or work placement that you feel that, what, I do want to become a secondary teacher, or I do want to be a fully qualified engineer. I do want to work on a space station. There is that pathway. And the connection there is, you can do a VET program, a VET subject, and you could use it as both as a VCE subject or as part of VCAL. Now, at the completion of VCAL, with that, you may wish to go directly into employment, take up an apprenticeship or a traineeship, or with your VET, extend it even further and go into TAFE and do a diploma or advanced diploma. And that's your ticket to get into a degree at university. In the past, I've actually seen some students, through VET at VCAL, do go into university eventually. So, for example, you may wish to do a diploma course for 1 year, and you actually do get credit for it to go into the second year of a university course. And the same thing with VCE. At the completion, you may still wish to go into employment, apprenticeship or traineeship, or if you want to go into a TAFE certificate, and or go directly into a university. So whatever decision you make, there's still that pathway. You're not locked in and to one outcome. There is various ways. Next slide. Okay, now there's lots of decisions to be made, and I suppose you can talk to anyone. You can talk to 10 different people about the same thing. You might get 10 different ideas, but a good starting point is to access resources on the College Careers website, and there's so much ample information in there regarding post-school options, what you're doing, VET, what programs are out there in the community if you want to go and do an apprenticeship or traineeship. And to top all that, I've actually have emailed all Year 10 parents and carers a bit of a checklist of all the links to other online resources. For example, if you're not too sure about which VCE subject to do, you're trying to pick a fifth or sixth one, one of the links I've got there is VCE Study Designs. You go into that link and there's a list of all the VCE courses, and just have a bit of a look and see what's on the menu for each course and see whether it agrees with you. And also, just as important, there's past exams. If you want to get a bit of an idea what the exams look like for each subject, you can look at previous ones. And there's also examiner reports whereby they've actually, the examiner has actually expressed some of their concerns on how some students in the past have answered certain questions. So if you're not into essays, you can have a bit of a a gander at some of these end of year exams and see which ones not requiring an essay if you're not very good at, but there's others, it could be just multiple choice or just short answer questions. So have a bit of a look through that. And also on this website, you can also access various other resources like we've got the careers targets. We also put in there weekly newsletters relating to careers. And we tried to mix it up a bit with what courses are out there. And also we might focus on a particular occupation and show students, basically how to get there. Yeah, next page. Okay, now in year 10 at the moment with 4PS, we're doing a bit of a stock take. Individual students can actually basically work on what their interests are, what their values are, their skills, and then having a bit of a further look into what is do I go VCE or VCAL, and actually come up with a career action plan whereby they look at they identify their the goals and plans and work towards, what progress do I need to present myself to. So it's just, look, it's important that students do understand and get to know themselves a bit regarding their personality, interests and skills to make the right decision into what vocation they like to get into. Next page. Right, making career decisions. On the actual website, we've, again, there's the career target. And by looking at those targets, depending on which subject you pick, you get a bit of you can click on all the occupations related to that subject. Level 4, it is required that you complete a university degree. Level 3 is usually a TAFE degree or an apprenticeship. Level 2, you might need to complete a vet subject, certificate 4. And level 1 is basically, I think you just need a pulse, and it could be, you may not need necessarily the right qualifications, but as long as you can get straight into work. Now, keeping in mind, of course, you do have to realise that level 4, basically you do need qualifications. You must have the right qualifications. And so you do need to complete VCE subjects to get into that particular vocation. And the great thing about these career targets online, by clicking on each particular occupation, it gives you further information about what qualifications are required, future prospects, and also average income, and also a bit of a blurb about the job description and so forth. On top of that, there's also resources on vet subjects. I also look at your Moresby results. And also a big one is the VTAC prerequisite and course explorer. Universities and TAFEs have already got in mind what the prerequisites are for 2024. So there's some publications out there where you can access through the link that I've put on that sheet, and you can see for yourself what the prerequisites are. So you can have a bit of a look at that and see whether the subject that you're doing can lead to a particular course that you're interested in. Next page. Okay, whilst in year 10, you may still wish to, look at doing some further work experience, not necessarily during the school term, but during the 2 weeks holiday. If you feel that, you've discovered that, I wouldn't mind, working, with the a particular plumber in the area, and before you take on the vet plumbing, you can do that, but will have to be during the 2 weeks holiday. But entirely up to you whether you wish to do it or not. It's not compulsory. We've already had the compulsory work experience, but just in case you want to take additional work experience. On top of that, we We've also got Head Start, which I'll explain in a couple of slides later exactly what that is. And you may wish, and that basically means that you may wish to undertake a school-based apprenticeship and or traineeship while still at school. Next page. Right. Now, these just are some of the VET subjects that are offered. Now, some of them are actually offered internally at the school, but majority are actually on offer at other secondary schools 1 day a week and or a TAFE, whether it be at Bendigo, Sunshine, Broadmeadows. So depending on who's running it, if they've got any places. There's quite a few to choose from, but my concern is with some students is that they tend to look at these VET subjects as if it was an elective. It's not something that you would try for 2 or 3 weeks and go, you know what, I don't really like it. It's one of those things that you got to be 100% sure that you're interested in, and you have to stick with it for the rest of the year, particularly at VCAL level. If you drop out of if you drop out of a VET subject, one of these VET subjects, it's you will not be getting your VCAL certificate. So you've got to be sure about which VET you're interested in, and if you're not sure, I would say don't bother. But on top of that, to be sure, again, I've put some links in there where you can get further information about each VET subject, and they also include videos. Next page. Right, this is the Head Start, and we do recommend that, of course, it's compulsory, I should say, that you have to have a VET subject. You will be required to attend a trade school or TAFE 1 day a week, but also you'll be required 1 day a week to also work with a nominated employer in the area. And as you progress into year 11 and 12, you'll be doing an extra day of work placement. So it could be, you could end up in year 12 doing, 3 days or 2 days at school and 2 days at work and 1 day at TAFE. We do have Kelly in next page. We do have information, further information if you want to contact Kelly. She's a Head Start coordinator, and Kelly gives full support to each student, and they also develop a rapport with local employers as well as the various trades. And as you can see, in regards to the industries, it is very wide and varied. Okay, there's as it says there that there's 44 qualification areas. Now, I suppose in regards to managing Head Start in VCE, keeping in mind that by the time you get to year 12, you will be having 5 VCE subjects, and to actually take a day off or 2 to actually do work placement and go to trade school, we basically have to make that decision about whether you can catch up with the work. You will be required to catch up with the classes that you've missed during those days and make sure that you catch up. So, and as I said, if there are any doubts or issues, you can talk to the careers team as well as talking directly with Kelly about it. Okay, is there any more after that? I think that's it. All right, so, and from that, look, as I said, if you've got any concerns or issues, or you would like to know more information about any of those programs, don't hesitate to, send a line to the careers team. As I said, we did email everyone our details and how you can get in contact with us. And through the course advising days, if you require further assistance, by all means, give us a hoot.
Thank
Okay,
you for
thank
that, John. All right, so I will just jump back into the things I was talking about before. So as I said, EdVal for either VCE or VCAL, and you'll be able to select your course option, and for VCE, select your subjects. If you are selecting VCAL, just please note that you will be asked to select VCE subjects and these are really as backup. So if you are not accepted, if your application to be in the VCAL program is not successful, then these are your backup subjects. So if you get confused when you're in there about why it's asking for VCE subjects, that's all it is. And it's just how helps us do our planning to have that data in there. So as I said, there are two things that you need to apply for. The first one is VET. So if you are a student wishing to do VET or continue VET, you need to complete a VET application. These are for if you're a VCE student. So VCE student only for the VET application, because if you're applying to do VCAL, you will do your VET application as part of your VCAL application. We don't want you to have to double up on that. Both of those applications need to be submitted to the email address at the bottom of the screen. As I said at the start, these slides will be made available to you, but we usually get students to just drop them into us in the senior school office. But given we're not sure how long we'll be doing this remotely, we think it might be best that things get emailed to us at that email address there. So that's course.selection@gisbornesc.edu.au. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that screen for a moment, and I'm just going to pop onto our website just to show you where you can find the things that you may need, some of the resources you may need. So share my screen again and share. Okay, so this is obviously our website. If you pop up to the Learning tab here, you'll get a drop-down box to Senior School. And if you click on this tab, Course Handbooks, that is where you will find all the information you need for course selection, including these slides, which, as I said, will go up tomorrow. So if you click on that, you will get taken to, Richard, can you give me a thumbs up that you can still see that? Great. So you can see here that you've got the course handbooks, but you've also got the VCAL application form for 2022, and that will allow you to download a Word document that you can type into. The same with the VET application form, which is just down here. You also have on this a document which is our 10 into 11 subject selection planning sheet for 2022. This is a really useful document for just enabling you to get your head around what subjects you're selecting. As we've said, we would really like to see students make sure they're selecting subjects they need for their prerequisites and to meet that mandatory requirement, but also we want to see students picking subjects that are going to keep them interested, that they're going to enjoy, and that therefore they're going to be more successful at doing. So using that planning sheet would be really helpful. Other than that, what we have down here in lieu of our subject expo. So obviously we were hoping to see you all at school tonight, and we were going to have teachers from all our faculties here and able to talk to you about all the subjects that we offer and what they look like at Gisborne Secondary. We're really sad that we can't do that tonight, but you are able to watch some videos about all those subjects. So as you notice down here, there is a video for each of our subject areas in lieu of our subject expo. So please go and watch those and it'll give you a little more detail about those subject specific things. The other thing I will mention is please make sure you're talking to your teachers as well. So you know, students that have been at our school for a while will know that, you know, they can ask their English teacher about English subjects, their humanities teacher about those humanities subjects, and they're always willing to have a chat. They may try and convince you to take a subject you weren't thinking about, but it's really important to take that opportunity to talk to them, and because they're all really passionate about what it is that they do in their subject area. So more than willing to have a chat with you about what subjects you're thinking about taking. So that information is all there for you, ready to go. And as I said, these slides will be uploaded. I'll just stop sharing my screen for the time being. Other than that, we're really grateful to you all for adapting to our change of date and our change of circumstances with the subject selection process. It's really appreciated, and I know your students will really appreciate the fact that you've made the effort to be online tonight. I know we're all sick of Zoom now that it's our 5th lockdown, but we're really grateful that you've all attended tonight and are really happy to answer any questions that you may have. Please shoot myself or Richard or John an email, and we're more than happy to help you out. And I'll just have a quick look, make sure we haven't got any questions in our chat. No, we're looking